We're back at the Goodwill. Today we're going to check it out and see if there's anything good. I got my tiny ass mic, so I guess I'm a real YouTuber now. Let's get in there and see if there's anything worth picking up today. Well, we're getting close to Christmas time, so there were shelves and shelves full of Christmas tree stands, and just above that was this popcorn maker. Guys, clean your stuff after you bring it home from the thrift store. You never know what kind of grossness you're going to encounter. So many more Christmas tree stands above the standard selection of slow cookers and rice makers. Into the electronics now. Nothing too of note in here. A couple of older style calculators, which I guess some people will like. Definitely not for me. And a lot of old iPod connector, iHome type stuff. And then this Logitech keyboard. And this actually was on my Amazon wish list for a while, but look how gross it is and dirty. And again, just clean your stuff before you use it after you take it back from the thrift store. This Coca-Cola fridge, which was all plastic for $20, that's going to be a deal for somebody, but it's definitely not going to be for me. I always have to check out the art wall, but unfortunately today there was really nothing worthwhile. A lot of like commodity type art, nothing too original, but just behind the art wall was all the Christmas trees, so they're definitely getting ready for the holidays here at the Goodwill, and you can't blame them for that. When I recorded this, it was October 31st, so you know, we're really close to Christmas, I guess. But again, continuing along the art wall, nothing that caught my attention today. There's a couple of things here that I'm sure a lot of people would like, but for the most part, this is just like show homey type, very generic art, nothing too special, nothing too unique. And you got your like Pinteresty little signs there with laundry rooms and stuff about wine for all the stay-at-home moms that like to hang them in their house as, I don't know, some form of passive aggression against their husbands. I don't know. Anyway, onto the art wall still. Nothing of interest here. Nice big mirror here, but I'm going to skip that because I don't want to look at myself that much. And there's a big long wall of decor here that I always skip. Right now, as you can see, it's very themed for Christmas, but I'm not really a Christmas decoration kind of guy. It just all looks like clutter to me. So I sped right past this, and right around the corner from that is the media shelves, which I always stop at. But sadly today there is nothing too special on offer. The standard stuff that you find on the media shelf at the thrift store, lots of Xbox 360 and Xbox Connect stuff. Somebody submitted their entire Sims 3 expansion pack collection, which I'm sure somebody will pick up, but same standard stuff you see all the time. Lots of old EA Sports seasons from 15 years ago. Very popular video games that everybody had. And then the DVD box sets, of course, you always see the same series: Simpsons, South Park, Friends, Seinfeld. You know, all the big popular series. Everyone had the DVD sets when they came out. Small selection of Blu-rays, but otherwise the DVDs were pretty impressive. There's a pretty full shelf here, so physical media collectors can rejoice. And now on to the records. I'll tell you one thing I will not be picking up is the Bill Cosby record. Because, yikes. Sometimes I'll have a flip through all the records one by one, but today there wasn't anything that was piquing my interest, and so I just decided to flip through one of the rows and move on to the next thing, because nothing was piquing my interest. For like 2 seconds, I thought that was a Tina Fey record. At this Goodwill, on the back of the record shelf, they keep more DVD box set collections. Somebody turned in their entire Smallville and Prison Break collections. Somebody's going to love those. I used to like Smallville, but not enough to buy a DVD collection. Of course, you have to check out the board games because you never know what you're going to find. Maybe even some vintage board games from like the 70s and 80s, like Probe here. Interesting cover, but it's not something that I'm going to pick up. Around the corner from even more Christmas decorations, although very festive shelf, I have to say. I always check out the servingware and the barware because sometimes you can find some interesting barware, and there's a very particular style of bowl that I'm looking for. And I know that sounds super lame, but believe me, I found some good ones here before, and I'm always on the lookout for more. Over now to the clock shelf, I guess, and somebody donated their entire aquarium setup, so somebody will get a pretty nice aquarium for Christmas. Nothing too cool in the clocks section except for Christmas T-Rex, which I kind of liked. And you're seeing this more and more, a lot of these old style VR stuff that you put your phone in, so those didn't last very long. But anytime I see a nondescript white box with the Dolby Audio logo on it, I gotta open it up. I struggled with it for a bit, and to my disappointment, it was just a power supply. So nothing great at this Goodwill. We're on our way out, and let's see what the next one has to offer. We're all done here. Let's go on to the next one. It was a bit of a disappointing start at that first Goodwill, but I'm hoping this Value Village will turn it around. I don't really find anything much here, but I'm gonna check it out anyway, and maybe we'll come away with something fun. You never know. I feel it. I got a good feeling. We're gonna find at least one thing here. Let's get in there and see what we can find. And as it turned out, this Value Village actually had some really interesting stuff, like that Microsoft tablet there, a few of the old cameras here, and more Stanley Cups that, like we saw last time. I guess that trend is over. There was like a vintage typewriter there, and again, some old style cameras and figurines and things. Where they get off charging $50 for a figurine like that? I don't know. There was like a Domino's Easy Bake Oven, which I thought was really interesting. I'd never seen one of those before. And look, guys, it's the holy grail of our thrift store hauls. It's a KitchenAid mixer, but they were charging $150 for it, and it didn't even have all the attachments. And some Henckels knives, actually, which I was surprised to see. There was a couple of them in there. They were $5. I couldn't worry about putting an edge on them because I don't know how to do that. And then over to their media section now, I found something that I thought was really interesting. This was like an ET VHS tape, and I know this isn't original because it's got a THX digitally remastered thing on the bottom, but you don't often see ET in VHS form. So somebody's going to have a really fun, some VHS collector is going to find this. Look to be in really good shape. It's not for me, but somebody's going to have a really good day today. And over to the art wall, nothing but disappointment here today. Nothing good, nothing worthwhile, nothing that piqued my interest, at least. You know, art is very subjective, so maybe if you see something that you might have picked up, but there was nothing here that I was interested in. But just down from the art wall is the furniture section, and unfortunately there was nothing really interesting here in the furniture section. Sometimes you can find some nice hardwood pieces, not today. Some Rock Band stuff, you don't see that as often as you used to at the thrift store. It used to be everywhere, but now it's, I guess no one's buying it, so they don't put it out as much. This I found to be really interesting, an Onkyo TX840 for like vintage audiophiles. People are buying this stuff like crazy right now. I looked it up on eBay when I got home and it was $239.99 US. So that's going to be a great find for a vintage audio or a reseller, but not for me. Down at the bottom was a Singer sewing machine, and just behind that though is like a donut maker, a household donut maker. Man, I almost bought this thing because I love fresh donuts and I've always wanted to make them, but it's just too big, would take up way too much space. Above that, this Lighton, it was like a DVD rewriter, but also had a hard drive in it, and it was all looked brand new. It still had the plastic on it. And of course, your standard VHS holder, but this one was cracked in the middle, so not for me today. But down here was something super, super cool. Another vintage audio piece, this reel-to-reel player for only $25. I'm not a vintage audio guy, but somebody's going to love that. For $25, how can you go wrong? Just above that, this like clock that looked like it'd been in a smoker's house for probably 75 years. I thought about picking it up and cleaning it up, but it was just not. For $8, no, not for me. It was too gross. And then here's something that you don't see every day, a blue mic, which is insanity to me because people love these things, especially the older style ones, before Logitech took them over. But this one, I don't know. I have one. I like it, but I don't use it very much. $15 though, you can't really go wrong with that. It did have the older style mini USB connection as opposed to the micro USB or USB-C. So, you know, that's how you know how old it is. That'll be a great find for somebody. Definitely not for me though. Unfortunately, I had to put it back. It hurt a little bit to put it back, but I know somebody's going to like it. When was the last time you saw a Tableau? Those haven't been around for a long time. And here again, the same basic collection of Keurig machines and slow cookers that people buy. The Keurigs were so big like 15 years ago, but then I guess everyone got sick of them. A nice piece of hand-done cross stitching. I have enough of this in my house as it is, but nice to know that somebody's going to pick that up. Over to the office section now, and a very, very well-organized and well-labeled floppy disk holder. You know, you got your original systems and miscellaneous. Someone really, really took care of their floppies back in the 80s and early 90s. I don't have any, so I'm going to put that back, but always interesting to see this kind of vintagey old computer stuff, and one that's very well labeled as well. Over in the barware section now, someone is going to love this Shrek cup. This is a pretty good find for somebody, but not for me. I'm not as big a fan of Shrek, but I did like this Batman Forever mug from McDonald's. Very cool, but not something I'm going to take home with me. Over to check out the records again. Barry Manilow's greatest hits. I thought about it briefly, but it's not. No, I'm just gonna leave it. And I flipped through a little bit, found the Osmond Brothers. I don't know about that. Six Fat Dutchmen on the Polka Parade. That sounded interesting, but not worth the $2 it would have cost me to bring that home. And then just below that, a wee dram of scotch. I liked the drinks, but the record was just not for me. This Value Village has a vintage and collectible book section. I'm always on the lookout for a first edition of Catcher in the Rye, but nothing there today. And then I found this to be really interesting. Some Star Trek The Next Generation episodes on VHS, but these are all episodes from like the later seasons. But the artwork on the box is from the first season. So like you've got the low-cut uniforms, you've got Data dressed as Lore there, but these are all like 6 and 7 season episodes. So I don't know why they didn't bother to change the artwork on the boxes, but there were a few of these. There was a lot of them. They were only $2. So somebody who's a VHS collector is going to find those and like them. But yeah, like, and even the bad episodes like Sub Rosa, they still had those on VHS as well, but still with the same old style first season artwork on the box. Interesting selection of 8 tracks. It was all country music and country music compilations. That's fine if that's what you're into and you have an 8-track player. I'm not, and I don't. But interestingly, the last one was the same ABBA 8-track that we saw in the last video. And you gotta spin through the toy section, of course. This is the most organized and put together I've ever seen a toy section at a Value Village. Yes, very unusual to see a clean and organized toy section at a Value Village. Usually that stuff is just strewn all over the place. And nothing interesting in the board game section, the same selection of games with limited replayability. So I think we're done here. Let's move on to the next one. That was actually one of the more impressive stocks that I've seen at a thrift store haul. There was like that Yeti mic, and there was the Henckels knives in there, and the ET VHS. Actually some pretty cool stuff in there. I almost walked away with that little donut machine there. I love me some fresh donuts, but something like that is just going to take up too much space. But yeah, that checked off kind of all the boxes on a thrift store bingo card. You had your KitchenAid mixer in there. You had your like expensive piece of electronics that was pretty cheap. You had some vintage electronic stuff like that alarm clock and that typewriter, and even that reel-to-reel was somebody's gonna have a pretty good day in there if they're looking for any of that stuff. None of that was for me though, unfortunately. I'm sorry to say that I didn't pick up anything at that thrift store, but again, some pretty cool stuff to see in there. Lots of good vintage things, lots of good finds, but for somebody else, unfortunately not for me. So let's take a break from this one and we'll go on to the next one. And this is the Value Village. That didn't sound good. This is a Value Village I frequent because it's in a pretty nice neighborhood. Sometimes I found some good stuff in here, other times I haven't found anything. So I doubt it's going to be as good as the last Value Village that we went to, but let's pop in and have a look and see what we can find. Of course, it was not as good as the last Value Village we went to. Nothing good in the Christmas tree aisle. The artwork aisle, again, was a little bit... left a lot to be desired. Nothing too out of the ordinary. The kind of the same stuff you see at all over thrift store. This one is a bit weird to me. This is a $10 vintage calculator with yellowing paper on it, and the battery cover was missing. I don't know where they get off charging $10 for something like that. And over to the media section here, an interesting piece of Canadiana, a compilation of Canadian stand-up comedians with performers like Jim Carrey and Russell Peters and Howie Mandel. Pretty cool if you're into that. It's not something that I need in physical media form, but it looked like it had a bunch of CDs in there, so somebody's gonna enjoy that. Same basic fare as you see everywhere else in the video game section. And on the media shelves, nothing too great. Hey, throw out your garbage. God, don't leave your disgusting coffee cups lying around. There's garbages everywhere. Hey, is Bluey out? Are we starting to see Bluey stuff at the thrift store now? That's too bad. I like Bluey. And then we have got our standard selection of alarm clocks and the stacks of DVD players over in the electronics section. Nothing too interesting here. Always the old style monitors and things too. But we did find the Microsoft version of the Logitech keyboard that we saw at the other thrift store. This one not as dirty, but still looking pretty gross. Hey, speaking of things that look gross, look at this disgusting controller. I'm going to take a pass on that as well. An older style Sony Bravia TV, that would have been a very expensive TV back in the day. Nothing too interesting in the furniture section though. Old entertainment centers with CD holding racks and TV stands for big tube TVs and stuff, and sticks in a vase. If you want to go back to the 90s, sticks in a vase was a very popular decor item back then. And over in the appliances section, the same selection of slow cookers and rice cookers, and a chocolate fountain, which I thought was interesting because it had a long range moving tag on it. So somebody had that in their house and packed it up and moved it across the country. And some Visions cookware.
Visions cookware lets you look while you cook, and the handle stays cool.
A very trendy item in the 80s. My parents had Visions cookware, and I'm sure yours did too. The SodaStream selection, always very big. Little, tiny little cups. They looked kind of interesting to me. I almost got them just for decor purposes, but they were chipped. Not sure what this guy's doing or what he's hanging out there for, but I don't know why he's with the coffee mugs. And this little candy dish I thought could have been an interesting glass piece. I like that kind of 70s style look, but it was a little too expensive, $8.
It is a candy dish, Ned. $90.
And on the inside of the lid, it had a bit of a chip in it, so not in great shape. I'll leave that for somebody else, but it's too bad because I kind of liked it.
What the f*** is this?
Yeah, I caught this guy staring into my soul from the bottom shelf. He's a model for learning how to cut and dye hair, and by the looks of the cut job and the dye job, the person learning did not learn very well. And there was a selection of haunted dolls up here, and down at the bottom here, Kimberly is going to stare into your soul and give you nightmares while you sleep. And over to the glass cabinet, there's a few vintage cameras here. There's an old Polaroid there that was $15, so somebody's going to like that probably if you're a collector. Some nondescript tablets, and a bunch of shoes and boots, which I don't know anything about fashion. Are those worth being under glass? I don't know.
There's some pretty standard stuff at this Value Village today. Nothing too spectacular. Lots of creepy dolls and creepy, weird, like haircut practice heads. So I'm going to take a pass on those. But let's see. I think we got one more stop today. And then we'll call it a day. Maybe we can find something. We just find one thing. Man, I'm still thinking about that donut machine. I should have bought that. My last stop of the day is this Goodwill here. I don't come here very often. It's a little bit out of the way for me. The parking lot's always usually full. It's difficult to get in and out. And I've never actually found anything good here the few times that I've dropped by. But I'm going to check it out today as our last stop of the day. And hey, thanks for joining me on this journey. It's been a lot of fun. I'm hoping to do this more and more. So hit that subscribe button. And you know what? Drop me a comment and let me know if there's anything that you saw in the video today that you would have bought for yourself.
And under glass, they've got a 3rd generation Apple TV. You don't often see Apple stuff out on the floor, so that was interesting, but I'm not even sure what you can do with a 3rd generation Apple TV anymore. Same video games and stuff, very overpriced. There looks like there's a pink Nintendo DS there for $40. I don't know, is that reasonable? Somebody tell me in the comments. Down at the bottom, there's like one of those flight controller joysticks things, and just above that was an Xbox 360 with a big fat 60 gig hard drive. I missed the price on that, but I think it was about $60, so, you know, way too expensive for an Xbox 360, and a Nintendo Wii all wrapped up under there as well. Exactly what you'd expect in the media aisle. EA Sports games and Friends DVD box sets. We'll move on. The records I found to be very interesting at this because you don't often see old 45s just kind of out in the open. So I decided to flip through them and have a look. I didn't recognize like any of the artists or any of the songs on anything, but I wanted to keep flipping to see if there was anything interesting. And as I flipped through, like a weird eye from one of the album covers appeared through the record holes, and I had to flip until I got to whose eye it was. It was Peter Pringle's eye. Not creepy at all. We're going to move on. There's the appliance section with the milkshake machines here, and you don't often see these. This is a new old stock slide projector carousel. Sometimes you see the slide projectors and sometimes you see the carousels. You don't often see them wrapped up as new old stock like this, so some vintage, some collector is going to enjoy that. Here was what I think is like a POS system. It had a screen protector on it with lots of scratches. I couldn't make out what it was for. It did have some writing on it in a language that I don't speak, so that wasn't very helpful. And then, of course, because it's Christmas time, boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of Christmas cards. On the shelf above that was this interesting PC game, which, if you look at the system requirements, required 2 CD drives for a Windows 95 computer. That was a big, big ask back in the Windows 95 days.
Well, as expected, nothing in that Goodwill, but not too surprising because I don't think I've ever found anything good in there. But overall, I think it was a pretty fun afternoon. I had a good time trying to hunt for some things. And hey, thanks a lot for joining me on this one. And get subscribed because I might do it again. In the meantime, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.